Welcome to the Power of Nature podcast. I'm your host, Michelle Waldo. In this show, I talk about how nature and the natural world can communicate with us, how it can communicate directly and individually with each of us, and how this can create immeasurable benefits for us in our lives. I share stories of my experiences doing this as part of a regular and ongoing practice, and I talk to others about their experiences with the power of nature as well. So join me as we go on a journey of learning about the power of nature, how it can communicate directly with us, and the impact that it can have on our own lives. Welcome back to the Power of Nature podcast. In today's episode, I'm talking about how the rhythms of nature can help us with sorrow, help us with our sorrow that we're experiencing. It's kind of weird to start this episode. I'm in my office, which is my art studio, and it's actually a sunny, beautiful day here in Montana. I have Art Cat with me. She's Kit Kat. She's jumping around, hopping around, full of life and vitality, and energy and spunk. She's like half feral, so you know, she's funny. She can be loving one minute and then kind of distrustful and lash out the next. She's getting more trustful, but she's so full of life. And then we have a room right next to my office, which we call the cat room, which is where we feed our cats, and we have litter boxes, and we store a bunch of stuff, and it's actually its own little room that happened to exist in this house. And in that room, we have a cat who is one of a litter of 4 that we fostered and then adopted all of them. How many years ago? 17, 18? I guess I just did the math. It's about 18 years ago. We fostered a litter of kittens. We thought we were going to foster them, and then we ended up adopting all of them. They were 2.5 weeks old when we first got them, and we could hold them all 4 of them in kind of like cupping 2 hands together, and all 4 of them fit. So long story as to how we ended up having them. But one of the females, there were 2 females and 2 males, and one female, we had to sadly say goodbye to a couple of years ago. And now in the next room, next to me are one of our others, a male that's black, is, we think, making his journey any moment now. He's been pretty sick for a long time, and, yeah. And my husband is really, really attached to him. I have been really attached to all of them, but I am really attached to him as well. If you've heard in this podcast a cat howling in the background, that's not him. That's the female that is still left, and I swear she will outlive us all. She's funny. She's the smallest, kind of like the runt of the litter, the most outspoken and demanding. But this guy, he is he's just such an amazing cat. But he's been not well for a long time, and is in the next room, and we've spent a lot of time with him. just kind of being with him. And it's been a really hard journey and a hard experience. Many times thinking it was time to say goodbye a while back, and then having him turn another corner, and having conversations with the vet about, is he in pain? We don't want him to suffer. But nature seems to be taking its course as far as we can tell. And it's been rough the last 24 hours, because we've been really seeing, or the last 24 hours, we've been really seeing a drastic change. And what does this have to do with the rhythms of nature? It's crazy. I was sitting on the couch this morning, in the sun, just kind of drinking my tea and just kind of reflecting after waking up and spending some time with our cat. And I think I had another cat on my lap as I was sitting there, and one of our younger ones. And I felt this like incredible heaviness, almost like, where you're just like, oh, I just woke up, but I just want to go back to bed, kind of a deal. But I didn't want to just go back to bed. Yesterday I had a really great experience of doing a photo shoot of some of my art, and I wanted to continue with that today. I've got lots of natural light. There's some of my other work that I want to photograph, and I had this like really amazing experience of, instead of my photography project being painful the way it had been, it kind of like turned a corner, and I kind of found fun in it. I found joy in it. So I was kind of two minds this morning. I was like, 2 points of view. One was like feeling this incredible, just kind of weight of exhaustion, of just wanting to go back to bed because of all the emotions around our cat. And then, feeling like I also want to do my photography, not because I have to, but because I know it felt really good, and it feels really good. And as I was sitting and just kind of taking this all in, and trying to not run away from my feelings. I mean, I feel like this is such a big thing that I have learned from nature and from my life, that, running away from my feelings does not serve me. It does not help me. So, I was just sitting with my feelings, with not even knowing what I was feeling, half numb, half just exhausted, half wanting to do photography. And I just kind of let myself just breathe into it and just sit there. I had this other cat on my lap, and he was purring and kind of doing all the good things that a cat on your lap can do. And yet my heart is very sad about saying goodbye to our other cat, the one in the room next to me where I'm recording right now. And I know, I believe, that our bodies are just a physical, our bodies have their own wisdom and consciousness, but I know that our bodies are, really like a temporary form for our greater consciousness. That's what I believe, our greater energy. I don't believe that we terminate anybody, like animal or plant or human, when we depart our physical bodies. I just think our consciousness kind of withdraws from that form, and we continue as pure energy until, or if we decide to move into another physical form. So I know part of me is aware that our beloved cat is it's like there's very little energy left in his body right now. Most of his energy is elsewhere, and I know that, but it doesn't make it any easier. It doesn't, it does make it easier. It does make it easier. It does, that awareness, but it still felt really heavy to be sitting there and feeling, this sadness and feeling like I just wanted to go back to sleep. And I kind of just let myself just look out at the mountain in front of us and the sun and the trees and I feel like animals in nature have always just been the best medicine for me for every single thing I've ever experienced in my life as a challenge, and also just giving me just the greatest experiences of just joy and just peace and harmony and beauty, just all of that. But I was kind of tuning into looking at the mountain, which has snow on it, and sitting on the couch with the cat. And, I really had kind of like a message of nature come to me, which is not unusual. And it was, it was kind of like, it reminded me of like winter, and I'll get into that in a minute, but it's because what I was feeling was this heaviness of just wanting to go to sleep, just kind of wanting to go to sleep, not knowing how to handle the emotions and the pain really of us saying goodbye to our cat, and just feeling extreme heaviness about it, and yet knowing that it's okay at one level, but still feeling like a wave, like a tsunami coming over me, and I kind of just wanting to get away, just wanting to get away, just wanting to distract myself, just wanting to feel better, just wanting to go do something happy and shut down these other feelings. But I know that it doesn't serve me. It doesn't help me to do that. I've learned that, sitting with my feelings and sitting with whatever I'm experiencing is so much more helpful than the method of running away. Now, that said, there are times in my life where there was no way I was capable of feeling what it was that I was experiencing, and I had to run away. I had to move to other places, to kind of be ready or be able to come back and process those feelings. And that can happen as well too. Our survival instincts can kick in, and we can kind of put something off until we feel stronger. And I know that that's good too. But I felt as I was sitting there today, like that wasn't really what I was calling myself to do. It's like it's like part of me wanted to get away from the heaviness. But another part of me knew I could handle the heaviness. And so as I sat and I just kind of let myself be with that, because I've been through, not a lot of deaths, but a number. Both my parents have passed. Of course, all my grandparents, all of my uncles are gone, except for one, and we've had a lot of animals pass, and even recently, I've had animals pass. My 2 pet mice and 2 chickens. And we had to say goodbye to one of our horses a couple of years ago that we didn't have that long, but nonetheless, we've had dogs and other cats. It's been, it's been, it's not easy for me to go through those experiences, but I have learned through them, and I feel like gotten stronger, and I really felt today like sitting and just being with that sorrow, just that I could handle it, even though it felt really hard. And nature just seemed to kind of come and give me this very, very visceral, not like just a in my head message, not just a think about it this way, Michelle message, but like visceral. And this is the kind of stuff that comes from my inner self that I've learned, how to really allow is like visceral communication, where I really feel it in my body experientially, in my entire being experientially. Usually I engage in this when I go into a connecting inward session, but at this point, I don't actually have to go into what officially I call a connecting inward session. I can experience it even outside of what I would call a session. And that's kind of what was happening. I was just sitting there, and nature was kind of giving me this visceral, experiential message. And the message was about the seasons, and nature's rhythms, and it was first like a message kind of about, kind of like the beauty. If you hear a dog in the background, that's my son's dog, which actually has now kind of become my husband's dog, but she might be howling back there. But nature is she sounds like a coyote. She's not. Nature has rhythms, and we see this all the time when things die and they decompose and they go back into nature, and then we see the birth of new things, the birth of baby birds in the spring, and bugs that kind of come out, and just things being born. We see it in leaves and in plants and in grass, and we see this cycle over and over and over again in the rhythms of nature. We also see it in the seasons, and in the seasons, we see the birth of new things in the spring, and the growth of things in the summer, and the winding down of things in the fall, and kind of like the hibernation of things in the winter, and then spring returning once again with the growth of new things. And I just kind of felt nature just kind of gently, almost like cradling me in a way, my energy. I felt supported by the presence of nature as I was sitting on my couch today, and just feeling like it's okay to feel really heavy, it's okay to feel and just let go into that heaviness, to not be afraid of it, to not be afraid to just go in and almost kind of like let it engulf me. But it was a letting it engulf me, not because I'm being attacked, but it's more like just a rhythm. It's like, I don't know how to explain it. I'm trying to put it to words, but it's like as normal as breathing. It's as normal as a wave coming up on a beach. It's like there's these rhythms, and I really felt nature just helping me, kind of release in and feel and accept the and be reminded of these rhythms and how these rhythms can help us just kind of flow with whatever is going on, even when it's deep heaviness in our sorrow, even when we feel like part of us is like, oh, we just don't want to do this, and in the embracing of the rhythm, in the embracing of the heaviness and embracing and allowing it, it's like I gave up my struggle. I gave up the fight. I gave up the resistance to the rhythm of nature and to the rhythm of my feelings, my feelings of sorrow and pain and sadness over our cat. And it also other things, like I find that the more that I tune into my inner self, the more I tune into energy, the more sensitive I become to everything around me. And it's a beautiful thing, because I feel like it is in tuning into that I I experience more beauty. I experience more joy. It's like I have more of a range of that, but I also feel, I feel the weight of things more. Like there's certain things going on in the world, where people are just really not happy about things, and there's a lot of like anger of people towards other people, and I feel that more. I feel that more, having become more sensitive to energy in general and my own energy. I feel it more, but I also feel more joy. I also feel more beauty. I also feel more love. And what it can be overwhelming at times to like have this greater depth of feeling and just be like, oh, I can't take that. I don't want that. Sure, I'll take the joy. Sure, I'll take the beauty. Sure, I'll take the love. But I don't want the sorrow. I don't want the pain. I don't want the sadness. I don't want that. I don't want those things. But the thing is that it's like nature was kind of calling out to me and kind of cradling me softly in its whispers and conversation with me as I was sitting on the couch and saying, it's okay, just it's okay to go in to these feelings. It's okay to experience them. It's okay for this deep sorrow and heaviness, nature, as we see, nature never stays in one season, nature never stays in winter. There's the season of winter, and then the season of winter is always followed by spring and summer and fall, and I know things are different when you don't have 4 distinct seasons, but I grew up with 4 distinct seasons, and I'm back with more of that here in Montana. I found it challenging living in California when the seasons weren't as kind of distinct. It was more challenging for me. So if you don't have those kinds of seasons, this may not resonate with you. Maybe you'll resonate with the other aspects of nature, because these rhythms, are in the seasons, but they're in just life. They're in the natural world. And there are natural rhythms that I feel like we can get in flow with. And when we get in flow with, it doesn't feel so hard and so scary to experience, kind of like the natural rhythms that are within us. When we feel things, that we're saying goodbye to, and other things we're saying hello to. But really this episode is about the saying goodbye to, it's like I sat on the couch and I kind of like let myself just give myself permission to just go in to that deep exhaustion. It's like a deep just letting go. It's like a deep not fighting. It's like a deep feeling of sadness. And I could, try to fight it. I could distract myself. I could try to get to some other feel better place, but I find that doesn't serve me. There are times in my life when I had to do that, but at this point, I find that I have the awareness and the strength in me to, with messages from nature and the natural world and my inner self, to help me navigate these natural rhythms, like what we see in the seasons and like what we see in just any natural thing. And somehow it's hard to put this to words because it's such a visceral experience. It's an energetic and yet feeling experience that I was having. Words are just, it's almost like icing on an incredibly, deep, complex, multi-layered cake. It's like barely touching the surface. But I felt a sense of just peace, acceptance, okayness. I find that this is what happens when I tune into my inner self. Not all the time, but my inner self is, as I go on the journey of listening to myself, my inner self, more and more, I find myself experiencing this kind of okayness no matter what. I have to let go of old things sometimes to do it, and that's when it doesn't feel so good all the time. The thing that I was just talking about a minute ago, where sometimes my inner self is calling me because I'm calling myself to let go of something that isn't serving me anymore, that I don't want. And some part of me is holding on to it, and I don't want to let it go. And it can feel really challenging in those moments. But I find in general that my inner self, is always benefiting me in the end. And that I'm never alone when I'm, no matter what, it's always there with me. And nature is such an amazing conduit of this. Like, it's just like salve on a wound. It's like, it's just, the best medicine in sickness. It doesn't, I find that it's not that nature removes me from that which I am not wanting. Like, it's that nature helps me find peace and clarity and strength in knowing, regardless of that which I'm struggling with. That's the difference. Like, I've talked in this podcast about how, I think I've talked about it somewhere, if not in this podcast, one of my others, about going into nature so many times to make big decisions. Like when I've been really confused about things. Before I moved to California, the very first time when I was in my early 20s after college, and I didn't know where I should live and what I should do, and all my plans had been foiled, and I was just kind of a wreck. And I just found myself going to the woods in central Pennsylvania, going up into the mountains, the small mountain ranges that are there in the Allegheny Mountains. Allegheny? No, they're not Allegheny. Near State College. I forget what those mountains are called. Alleghany's in Pittsburgh, I think. But I'm losing all my Pennsylvania references after not living there for a while. But my point is, I went to the mountains, and I went to the woods, and I went and I would feel a little better, and then I'd leave, and then I would come back again, and I would feel a little better. And it's not that I went there and I got like, ooh, now I'm feeling great. It's like this big fix. It wasn't that. It was just going there and being in the trees and walking around or sitting and just looking, that I would just feel a shift within me. My outer circumstances had not changed. They had not changed. Like when I was lost and confused about where to move and where to go and all of that, that didn't go away. I didn't go into nature and suddenly it's like, go here. It wasn't that. It was just going into nature and finding that I would just feel a little better. And then I would go back in nature and I would find I would just feel a little better. Not better as in that I didn't have the same circumstances still in my life. Just better in that I felt stronger. I felt more at peace. It's like I had a different perspective or lens that nature gave me on my situation, and it just didn't seem to my outer world situation didn't seem to affect me as much as it had. It's like I was more tuned into something else within me, and nature helped me do that. And eventually, like when I was in my 20s and not sure what I was doing, I took to the woods, I took to nature, I took to the mountains over and over and over again, and until when I wasn't in the woods and I wasn't in the mountains, one day a friend said, "Hey, I'm going on a trip to San Francisco. Why don't you come along?" And I was like, "San Francisco? I don't know anything about that." And she's like, "Well, there are these cheap flights you can get if you go to this like one grocery store and you buy groceries, you can get a voucher, and I don't know, for like $200 you can fly." And I was like, well, I don't have anything better to do. I'm just completely confused about my life. So I was like, fine, whatever, like that's the way I felt about it. um, but it ended up that I think I ended up getting a book about San Francisco and reading some stuff, and I kind of felt a little spark as I was reading about it. And I was like, well, this is interesting. This will be kind of fun to check out. Sure, this could be a good distraction, and then fast forward to my trip, and my trip it did not pan out the way that I thought it was going to pan out at all. At all. I ended up having a fight with a friend. They didn't have a place for me to stay like they had said they did. I had to stay at a youth hostel by myself. I was furious with my friend because she had told me I could stay with her sister's friend, but they hadn't even known I was coming. It was just like this big crazy mess. But I ended up exploring San Francisco a lot on my own, and I think it was a really good thing in the end. I think it was part of my soul's journey. And what ended up happening is there was a day where I was walking in San Francisco, down by the bay and by Fisherman's Wharf, but I think it was on Market Street in downtown San Francisco. And I just had this like knowing, it was like a beaming down of a message. Like, you are to move here. And it was so strong. It was like this full force. It was like the strength of a tsunami in a message, but it wasn't scary. It was just known. It was just like given. It was just like fully informed. You are to move here. I don't know if those were the exact words, or move here, or this is where you need to move, something like that. And it was so strong that there was no doubt. There was like no doubt, even though I had no idea how I would move there. I had not a single friend. I had no job. I had no place to live. I didn't know anyone there. And yet I'm to move to San Francisco, this place 3,000 miles across the country from anybody and everybody I knew. I mean, the only person I guess I knew was my friend's sister's friend, who wasn't even a friend because she didn't even, she wasn't even going to let me stay at her apartment. And she's the only one that I knew of. And yet I'm going to move to San Francisco. Like, what is up with that? But what ended up happening is I ended up going back after the trip back home to Pennsylvania. And I just knew this is what I had to do. And I kept going into the woods, and I kept going into nature. And inevitably, what happened, inevitably, it didn't feel inevitable. It felt very scary and terrifying, and like I was crazy, but I had no other choice, kind of a thing. But I ended up like saving money up for a few months, and just ended up packing up my things and driving across country by myself in an old car with a little bit of money and no contacts and no job and no nothing, and staying in a motel and finding a life, creating a life, really is what it was. But I will say that would have never happened if it wasn't for those experiences in nature. It's like the experiences in nature, they didn't come with a big blaring horn like move to San Francisco. No, it came from going into nature and just feeling, I don't know, the tiniest of shifts, sometimes not even feeling like there was a shift, but I realize now there was. And then going back again and going back again and going back again and going back again, rinse and repeat until I took that visit to San Francisco. And then I came back and I was like, I'm a crazy person to think I'm going to move to San Francisco. And yet knowing there was no question, some part of me knew I had to do it, and going back into nature to try to muster up the actual strength to do it. And I did. And then when I moved to San Francisco, I turned to nature again. It was a, walking along the beach, Ocean Beach, the Pacific Ocean. I lived right near there. I ended up getting a place to live there. Near there, walking distance, and then walking through Golden Gate Park. And then I started running through Golden Gate Park, and I just started running for hours in Golden Gate Park and in nature. And it got me through. It got me through all of that. And this is the key thing, is that, I guess what I'm trying to say is that I've learned over and over and over again, how much nature can support me and does support me and help me. It helps me when I'm running in Golden Gate Park. It helps me when I'm in the woods, and it helps me when I'm on the couch feeling, incredible sorrow and heaviness at saying goodbye to one of our beloved cats that has been so important. This particular cat has been by my side and by my husband's side through miscarriages and not being able to have kids, to finally being able to get pregnant and have our first son and our second son. And this cat's been by my side in making transitions of like being more creative in my work, and this cat was by my side when I wrote my first novel. I mostly did it in a cafe up the street, but I also worked on it a lot in my office with him nearby, and this cat has been by my side through the sickness of my mom and her passing, and my kids and their health issues, and my own journey with my creativity, and just thing after thing after thing after thing after thing, life event after life experience after life experience. And even knowing, even believing that our bodies are just temporary forms that our consciousness, our energy exists in. And I know that our relationship with our cat is not over by any stretch. It does not change the fact that I feel a deep sorrow, of his physical presence and the transition that we're going through. And yet, here I was on the couch, and nature was once again not only soothing me with another cat that was on my lap, purring and giving me such healing energy, but also the message that came through from the mountains and the trees and all of that about just allowing the rhythms of nature, like not running from them. A reminder about, with winter, there is a dying, but then comes a spring. And with the rhythms of nature, there's always a rhythm. There's always a down so that there can be an up. And that I find that the more that I learn to tune into myself and embrace these rhythms, the rhythms of the seasons, the rhythms of just nature itself, the rhythms of life, I find that it helps me more and more. And I find that nature has always been alongside me, showing me the way, helping me experience hope when I feel none, helping me face feelings that I don't feel like I have the strength to face, and yet I come to realize I do. And also experiencing the most ecstatic joy and ecstasy at the beauty that nature also shows me as well. And it's all part and parcel for the course. And it comes from really, embracing these rhythms and how nature and its rhythms can help us with all of our emotions, including our deepest sorrow. So I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to go check on our furry friend next door. I've got to feed my horses, and I'm going to work on my artwork today. And I have the ability to do that now. So much also because of nature and the message and insights and wisdom that I gained just sitting on the couch and even talking about it in this podcast. So that's what I wanted to talk about in today's episode, and I'm going to leave it at that until the next time. Thanks for tuning in to today's episode of the Power of Nature podcast. To learn more about me and my other offerings, you can visit my website at michellewaldo.com. That's MICHELLEWALDO.com.